I have to confess that I had a very serious temptation on Christmas Eve. I thought to myself, why don't we just come in here and strew this carpet with some used barnyard straw, get the dirtiest altar cloth that we have, and dress the altar, and forget about the garlands and the wreaths and the candles and the poinsettias. Why don't we just tell it like it was, instead of guzzying everything up? But I was strong, obviously. I did not give in to that temptation. I think the point is that sometimes we can be tempted to miss the deeper meaning because of the celebratory activities that go on. And so we really do have to stop and pause, as we are doing, I hope, at this Liturgy of the Word, before we enter into our house of Bethlehem, which is the Eucharistic table, the house of bread, and just go over for a few moments in our minds what we're celebrating, what it's all about. And it's very succinctly summed up in John's famous quote, which appears on many roadside signs and bumper stickers. God so loved the world, the cosmos, everything created, the human family, even you and me individually. God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, not to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through his Son. That's the whole Christmas message in a nutshell. But we have our other temptations too, besides avoiding the work of decorating. There is the temptation to spiritualize Christmas, to spiritualize Christ, Jesus. We don't want to think about the flesh. We don't want to think about the cross. We want virtual salvation. But you can't have salvation as you can have a text message. It has to be real. And the real message of Christmas has been very succinctly been summed up for us by Francis of Rome. This is what he said. True faith in the Son of God is inseparable from self-giving, from being involved in several communities, not just the family, but other communities. Faith in the Son of God is inseparable from service to each other and reconciliation with each other. Jesus summons us, he says, to a revolution of tenderness. Exactly what St. Paul says in his epistle to the Philippians. God emptied himself, divested himself, disrobed himself, if you will, of his divinity and took on, in addition to his divinity, our human nature. And so Francis of Rome continues, I prefer a church, read Christians or read Catholics, make it really close to home. I prefer Catholics that are bruised and dirty and hurting because they've been out of the church on the streets. I prefer that rather than a church that is unhealthy from being confined and from clinging to its own security. Now, instead of talking about the church, we all have to take those words to heart, to our heart. And so he's asking us to conform ourselves to Christ. This infant Jesus, even though I'm sure he couldn't walk in the first days of his life, was still taking his first steps towards the cross. Because the one we celebrate today is the one we'll celebrate on Good Friday and at Easter. And so the Pope is calling us to do exactly what God did for us. He lowered himself. And he's saying, lower yourself for each other. That's Christmas. And that's our call